Hello friends, welcome back to Innovations in Marketing of Innovations. This session I would be taking you structurally towards changing concepts in marketing of products and services, and from here onwards we would be talking about how authors, intelligentsia, academia, industry, everyone including me, we are looking at the current changes, or let us say we will go slightly in the retrospective past decade or so, and then current changes and foreseen changes, how marketing as a discipline is being reshaped. We reach to the levels of targeting and positioning, wherein we try to discuss how we have reached to the stage of micro segments and targets, and then we try to emphasize that it is more or less targeting, individualistic targeting, and then we talked about positioning, and in due course of time everywhere we are looking at the innovation perspective, innovation within the sphere of marketing as a discipline. We started from definition, we started looking at how things went ahead. Now we are going for a systematized discussion on how things are, so that we can infuse a thinking on how to develop a scope for innovation. There are two things which we have to learn in this course. One, what kind of an innovation is going on, what kind of innovation is foreseen, that is one. The second is what can be, which we can foresee, how we should inculcate a habit of thinking for innovation within the spheres of marketing, how you should be looking around, how you should not be overlooking smallest of the things, and that is the effort which we are making in this subject. So, structurally we would be taking the help of different papers and text which we are continuously referring to, and on the other side we will try to build up our imagination as well. So, let me start with something which I have assembled for you, and then we would be focusing upon the text which we are referring to, and or texts rather than which we are referring to, and that is how we would progress in this and the subsequent session. You see, at this stage, as the authors say, we are somehow diminishing the line between product and services. Although I would be talking about innovations in services as a separate sphere, but products and services, we are trying to bundle up things. So, here a key word which emerges in due course of time is bundling, because many a times you do not know that you are sticking with the organization, or you are loyal to the organization or satisfied by the organization because of the product you have purchased or the associated services of the product related to the product. For example, you have purchased a laptop, and then suddenly in the very first year, or let us say initial phase of the usage of that product, somehow you require some services. You have purchased an air conditioner, it requires a long term service association. You have purchased a washing machine, so then it also requires. There are several appliances which you stay with. You like to recommend those appliances to others, not just because of the performance of the product, which definitely comes alive as it has been promised. Companies, they do try to do that, but then service is associated with that. So, simple association of product along with services, but here the line is very thin between what is the reason for us. So, when we are talking of this kind of a situation, remember we are just referring to the contemporary stages wherein as far as marketing and services are moving through, and then simultaneously we can wonder about that this is where we are innovating upon. Sometimes I do wonder, for example, you go to a petrol pump, there was a time when you were beelining in front of the pump and asking for fuel. Today you go to a pump and there is someone who directs you towards the free the pump which is actually available, the machine which is available, and then they immediately come to you from all the sides offering you the services. They wipe off the glass, as well as they offer some additional services. Then there is free air, free nitrogen, and so on. Then they come and suggest that if oil has to be checked, and so on. several kinds of things are being associated for you to retain to that particular service station, that fuel pumping station. And although there is hardly a difference which we can at least as consumers feel between the two kinds of fuel offered by two kinds of companies, because we might not always try to go into the details of how well the fuel is refined and so on, except for that it is marketed that way. But still, you see, within that sphere, then there are washrooms available there, then there are some stalls available to purchase some things, for example, momos and those kind of things are also available. Those are being sold right now, and as far as this complete thing goes, and on highways, these fuel stations, they are associated with several kinds of joints and other things basically. So this is a complete ecosystem which we are which they are trying to develop in due course of time. Now, another element which we are talking of is, apart from products and services, is customers of customers. How far I am able to look into the satisfaction of the customers of my customer, and that is an interesting thing, because to retain my customer, their customers must be satisfied. I remember when I was working with a media company, a newspaper. So advertisers, they our customers were the advertisers, the organizations which used to advertise with us or which we motivated to advertise with us. And but again, the point is that why would they advertise with us? So definitely we were selling them this product on the basis of the reach, on the basis of several other elements, the merits which we had in comparison to other products. But again, the point is that are they going to be satisfied in terms of comparatively they are happy, but would they be getting the results? How to assure that they should be getting the results? So we did so many associated activities which actually brought in attention of their customers on those specific advertisements, so that our customers be satisfied, and that the practice we started long back. Similarly, several kinds of organizations, they have started working on these kind of things, and in past 2 decades or so, people are extremely cautious about how well their customer is satisfied in terms of the satisfaction of their customers. So that is one part, and there are several examples which we can work upon. Then there is an element of backwards and forward, and I would be coming back to this with little more detail structurally. So backwards and forward. So looking at a value chain from this end to that end, sort of. So where do we stand, and how should I be looking at as far as my efforts in terms of marketing services and products and services or products go? How well I am associated with as far as the this end of the chain or that end of the chain, and you would realize that authors, they have been calling this value chain marketing. That is how they are coming up with this. And then when we are talking of these kind of examples, I remember one beautiful example which I found in New Age of Innovation by Professor C.K. Prahalad, a very wonderful book which I personally like, Krishnan and Prahalad. So there they have given one beautiful example of NCR, National Cash Register. Now this organization, they used to they have been manufacturing ATMs and so on, and they have been manufacturing these cash registers and so on. How well they can make these machines efficient so that the customers of their customers get more satisfied, that has been the call of the day which has been described in that example, a beautiful example which is mentioned in that book, and then that is, I think, first chapter of that book. So and then that is a wonderful text to read. Then somehow there is an element of which you would realize in due course of time, that graduating from these kind of stages, we have been thinking in terms of the complete industry analysis, and that is where the structural description of how contemporary marketing is going to be is suggested by the authors and the text which we would be referring on. We belong to a particular kind of an industry, but then we might be an organization which is associated with several industries. For example, a chemical manufacturing company is associated with different kinds of industries in terms of their output being utilized with different kinds of the manufacturers, for example. For example, a chemical company which makes glues, so that kind of a glue or adhesive, for example, it can be utilized by different kinds of industries, and there are large chemical plants. So they have different kinds of customers who have different kinds of customers, and then they have different kinds of consumers, the end users. So this one organization may belong to different kinds of industry, and then that is slightly a complex kind of a situation. Coming back from that stage, we can have an organization which belongs to one industry, and authors have been talking about how we can compartmentalize ourselves within that industry sphere. I would take you towards further some more advanced stage, wherein I would be actually trying to make it more complex by suggesting that we may belong to any industry for that matter, if we are specifically focusing end user with a product, and we may feel that we are competing with different kinds of products satisfying different kinds of wants, a very complex kind of a situation. But today we are reaching to that situation. Why we are reaching to situation? I just broke the ice when I talked about that we are targeting individual and we are targeting share of pocket kind of a thing. So that is what we would be going to talk about slightly ahead of when we would be going further in our discussions. But as of now, I would be focusing upon this structured perspective of industry analysis and so on. But you see, now let me start taking you towards the elements of competition which the text would suggest. Competition and theoretical support from Michael Porter's 5 forces model. So that also we have to keep in mind at this stage. If you haven't read this anywhere, I would strongly suggest that you go to Google this model, and 5 forces model would be available. Try just to look into it. It's very simplified version of a wonderful kind of a structure which Professor Porter has contributed. So here competition is a sphere wherein the particular kind of an element of with whom we are competing at a larger stage, that is one part. But I would also be taking you towards beyond competition. W. Chan Kim's perspective of how to look at industry with reference to bypassing the competition or looking at share of pocket perspective as such also. So that we would be focusing upon in due course of time, but this session we would be focusing upon within the competitive sphere with reference to industry analysis. So these 2 points I would be coming to you with as far as later on discussions go, and in due course of time I will try to build up the story around that as well as these comparatively going parallelly with all the insights which you would have. And before I go ahead, I would like to put up some kinds of sort of examples which slightly put up in within the sphere of an understanding when we talk of innovations in marketing and when we talk of value chain perspective of marketing. Just keep these examples in your mind when I would be building up the case around as far as the whole story goes. For example, there is an insurance policy, Yashaswini, I think it is New India Assurance, which was utilized by Narayan Hridayalaya for developing a huge corpus in terms of registering several kinds of people within this policy to serve them with the services they have. It is a large cardiology setup, and Dr. Devi Shetty is the founder of this hospital and series of hospitals. So Yashaswini and Narayan Hridayalaya, just look at this, this is also a product, this is also a service and a product sort of, and here 2 kinds of industries are associated with each other, And if you will look at the value chain, you would realize that there are multiple kinds of elements associated with this. Then there is low cost energy. Low cost energy is such a complex industry if we try to build it up somehow. So, it is an output associated with lots of technological interventions on one side, and on the other side a habit of consumption which customer must develop, and somehow customer also must develop an insight on how to earn from that low cost energy intervention. I would be coming to these examples later on, but just at this till this stage just keep this in mind. Eureka Forbes, for example. So, they are a direct marketing organization largely. Now they have some retail outlets as well, but they build their structure around as far as direct sales go. So, they are selling products, but then satisfaction associated with the services and after sales services and so on, and AquaGuard is a very renowned product in due course of time as far as the whole situation goes. Then sometimes I wonder, and then as I mentioned in my last part, that beyond competition and share of pocket competition and competition. So, someday, for example, Apple entered into music. So, iTunes and Apple Music and Apple TV and Apple Movies and so on. Can Apple enter into, probably they are thinking of that, probably they should, I do not know, Apple Education as well, education on mobile phones, they have huge resources on that, why not? So, if they are actually going for this, or any other organization for that matter, whole of the globe would be going through a transformation in terms of education delivery, and then books would follow, and probably publishers, Apple, education, everything gets into one. Now, there are several value chains merging with each other here. Excellent thought, which is actually happening, and it has happened in different kinds of spheres. Let us watch for how it takes the shape. Now, let us go for as far as structured discussion goes related to whole of the scenario which we are trying to build up here, and this is a wonderful text, Kashani K and Jeanette J and Horowitz J and Meehan S and Ryan A and Turpin D and Walsh J, Beyond Traditional Marketing, Innovations in Marketing Practice, John Wiley and Sons, 2005, and we are continuously referring to this text. This is a team of professors from IMD Switzerland which has written this wonderful book. So, you see here they demonstrate that a supplier of polyurethane materials developed a new system for use in car seats. The company could not convince car seat manufacturers, its direct customers, to switch to its more expensive product. It addressed automobile manufacturers, for whom saving a few centimeters in cushion height translated into gaining interior headroom, a detail so important that the added cost was easily justified. And you see, customer of customers. As companies innovate to escape the threat of commoditization, and this is the term which they have used in their text, and I have referred to their text in my earlier discussions, and commoditization we have discussed earlier as well. So, the threat of commoditization, having a breakthrough product does not guarantee success. Behavior changes are required both along the channel and by the customer. But remember, behavior is a response function, we talked about that. And here we have to keep on developing an understanding on how innovation can instigate a response. I would be coming to that specifically when we will be talking about marketing of innovations, but you see here we are focusing upon innovations within marketing and generating a behavior response. But on the other side, we are foreseeing that behavior response should be generated alongside. That is the most important part, and that is why we are referring to as far as the whole value chain goes, because when we are referring to value chain, we develop the elements of benefit along the value chain, and then we focus upon targeting the elements and then going to the individual target. So, for example, up till now I had a simple kind of a structure going for as far as right side towards my customer or segment for that matter. So, through my vendors. But today I may seek the help of my raw material suppliers to focus upon a specific kind of a raw material, so that my customer gets satisfied through a different kind of a processing which I am asking for from my machine supplier in relation to a very specific specification which I would ask for, and they have customized that for me, and then everyone is focusing upon my customer, and that customer is an individual practically. This is what we are looking for. So, market bottlenecks and limited market absorption are likely to become increasingly common across companies and industries. Here authors have talked about contemporary marketing as traditional marketing. They want to differentiate between how things are changing. So, traditional marketing refers to practices aimed at existing target customers with existing sales or promotional practices. Employing existing arguments and approaches has its limits, as they say. To break out of behavioral stranglehold and differentiate from competitors, there is a need for innovation in marketing and incorporate the value chain marketing, and as I said, I would be talking about beyond competition as well. Developing competitive marketing strategy requires a focus on the industry and its value chain. Value chain marketing to refer to the practice of influencing an entire industry value chain for the benefit of marketing function. And when we talk about beyond competition or share of pocket, we are talking of multiple value chains, as I focused upon an example of Apple coming to education business. Value chain marketing requires marketers to develop an enhanced understanding of their industry, including activity at successive steps, and mark these words, throughout the value chain, activity at successive steps. This is the most important part. And to apply marketing tools to maximize effectiveness of the marketing program up and down the value chain. And this is how they are looking at it. The basic building block for understanding any industry is the macro business system. You see largely how industry is focusing upon, but keep making this situation complex simultaneously. This text also refers to that, and authors have very nicely put up a huge chart on, as far as probably some other slides we would be bringing that as well, wherein they are putting up different kinds of complexities within this kind of a structure. So, it includes all industry participants connected in a successive chain of value added from raw material, manufacturers, wholesalers, retailers, customers, and even recycling. Can we look at this from the very beginning? We have started doing that, and there would be a time when we would try to eliminate this situation completely by focusing upon this situation. This is again an important thing. Or if we are not focusing upon recycling, then we would be utilizing, as far as the complete waste which is generated, for example, converting that into energy, and then residual water can be sprinkled into the fields, and several agro processing organizations, they are trying for these kind of things as far as the whole situation goes. Then practicing value chain marketing, how to practice that, and then there are 4 or 5 points which I will quickly enumerate in front of you. Applying analytic tools to marketing is only useful if we can pattern new marketing approaches accordingly, but to me it is slightly ahead of that. And you see, remember, this text was developed with lots of hard work in 2005. Today we are focusing as far as 2023 goes. There are several other researches which have gone into the situation. I have been referring to several kinds of text, but this is one of the most structured things which we wish to pursue with you. But remember, it is a distance of almost 18 years which we are focusing upon, and lot many things have changed, although this still stands valid in terms of several kinds of spheres which we are focusing globally. So, but that is why I wish to add several kinds of other things which we have found through different kinds of papers or we have analyzed personally. So, one is the practice part includes industry mapping. An important part of value chain marketing is to construct a valid industry map that portrays the target customers. Here comes the target. This authors have also mentioned that, and I have been talking to my students in at IIT Roorkee, that somehow we have been taking this as a strategic part rather than marketing part. But to date, today and to date, this has changed. Today marketing is driving this strategy, and that is how businesses are redefined. So, earlier we used to ask a question what business we are into, and that is a valid important question which I also wish for everyone to learn, how to find that find the answer to that. But then today we must think in terms of the complete value chain while asking this question what business we are into. And authors also say that this means outlining the macro business system, identifying its participants and decoding its drivers and participants. Understanding the customer. In traditional marketing, we develop expertise in customers' differentiation, market segments, and in how the customer buys. In value chain marketing, we get into the customer's strategy and business reality as if we were the member of management team, and then pooling the customer experience to understand the industry, wherein industry knowledge, if applied properly, gives a decisive edge over competitors. Here again a competitive perspective goes, but that decisive edge also comes in if we bypass the competition, that we will talk about in due course of time. Here just remember these 4 or 5 principles, and I would be associating several examples with that. I have mentioned about those examples. Try and remember the example of NCR which I mentioned, and some other examples in terms of as far as the whole scenario goes, and then we will be focusing upon. Last point which authors mention is that developing value propositions of strategic value. And value propositions based on value chain market analysis differ from the traditional marketing practice of focusing on customer benefit or buying requirements. These were the 2 key important points, have been the 2 key important points up till now. These traditional ways of viewing customer needs do not yield strategic insight that can be used to turn difficult marketing situations around. COVID-19, we have experienced that, and that is why since the beginning I have been talking about looking at the complete value chain. So, value chain marketing can provide important if not decisive guidance on non-marketing functions. Holistic marketing has been talking about this, strategic marketing approach has been talking about this, but here we are trying to find an applicable aspect to how to go about it, and that is why we are wondering on which spheres to go for by using technology or no technology. I would be dwelling upon these examples, for example, how Apple or these kind of organizations can focus upon in terms of education, business and books go. Amazon already came into Kindle, but can they come into education as well? On the other side, I would be taking you towards the perspective of low cost energy generation and generating a complete livelihood around that, and with that concentricity we can generate a complete ecosystem of whole lot of a business around us. So, that is what we would be focusing upon, and you see I would be focusing upon few other elements and 1 or 2 more examples in association with these points. But just before I finish this session, these two more points have to be looked into. One is strategic selling, as the authors say, and they say that at many companies the sales function is effective at projecting traditional benefits along the lines of known customer buying criteria. However, in value chain marketing, message content needs to be reflected needs to reflect the client's strategic requirements. And last point is projecting influence downstream is not mere selling of ideas. It requires a company to meet downstream users of the products, even though these are not direct customers' accounts, not the direct customers' accounts. That is what we are looking at in due course of time. How preventive medical care, how preparation in terms of future of one's own career, in terms of one's own career through developing a particular kind of a skill and knowledge, how continuing education and all these spheres which we have been focusing upon in due course of time can be looked upon with these kind of perspectives. Remember these points, focus upon these points, and I would be coming to you with a very unique example of Hindustan Lever, and I would be focusing upon some contemporary examples also to strengthen this argument of value chain marketing perspective put up by Kashani et al., all other authors associated with Kashani K in their good book, along with developing this non-competitive sphere of as far as innovations in marketing. I will be seeing you next time. Till then, goodbye.